Welcome back to Sophie and Jumong, Part 31. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you won't miss any part. The garden lounge of Chairman Lee's estate was calm that afternoon. Sunlight spilled across the low marble table where delicate porcelain teacups rested. A soft breeze slipped through the sheer curtains, stirring the leaves outside. Chairman Lee and Dong Hyun sat opposite each other in quiet conversation, their voices low but steady. Nearby, Madam Lee entertained Hyejin and Gina with polite grace. There was a surprising ease between them all, as if time had given everyone space to soften. Chairman Lee remarked how much Gina reminded him of someone dear from long ago, how her grace didn't ask for attention but simply filled the room. Dong Hyun smiled and said she had inherited it from her mother, who now sat exchanging warm glances with Madam Lee. Talk drifted to Hyejin, then to Jumong. Dong Hyun noted how much steadier his daughter had become, how she seemed calmer, more grounded. Chairman Lee, in turn, spoke of Sophie, how her presence had changed Jumong in ways he hadn't expected. They both agreed. The children were finding their way. The conversation touched on the upcoming wedding. Chairman Lee shared that Sophie had asked to be married in Namibia to honor her roots. He'd agreed without hesitation. Dong Hyun nodded with quiet approval. The choice, he said, revealed the depth of their bond. For a moment, they simply sipped their tea. Nothing needed to be explained. Not the past, not the unspoken years. All that mattered was this. They were here now. Gina approached with her mother and Hyejin. She joked about the two men talking endlessly, and Chairman Lee replied that the topic had been her. She laughed, lighting up the space without effort. Even Madam Lee, so often unreadable, gave a genuine smile as she looked at Gina. "You're going to light up that wedding," she said. And just like that, the afternoon folded into warmth and laughter. For the first time in a long while, there were no shadows, only the quiet joy of family trying again. Sophie and Jumong were invited to appear on a live talk show, and today was finally the day for it. The bright studio lights cast a warm glow over the glass table where Sophie and Jumong sat side by side. Cameras panned across the elegant stage as applause erupted. The host turned toward Sophie with a look of admiration. "Welcome, Sophie. Everyone in Korea and many around the world have been waiting to hear your story. Let's start from the beginning. What was it like arriving here for the first time as a student?" Sophie smiled gently, her voice calm. "Korea was so different but so beautiful. At first it was cold and busy, but the kindness of people helped me feel at home. And how did you get this scholarship? I heard you were an outstanding student back home?" Sophie nodded. "Yes, I worked very hard in Namibia. I was honored to be crowned the most outstanding science student in my district. That caught the attention of the foundation that works with your government, and that's how I got a scholarship to study here in Korea." "Incredible," the host said. "And now you're a doctor. How has that journey been for you?" "It was tough at times," Sophie said. "But I kept going because I had a dream. Medicine is a calling. I want to help people. Korea gave me the tools, and now I want to give back to both Korea and Namibia." The host nodded. "What are your future plans then?" Sophie straightened, her voice firmer now. "I want to open a health outreach program that connects both countries, train students from Namibia in Korea, and also send Korean doctors for exchange work. I believe healing goes beyond borders." The host paused, impressed. "That's powerful. Now, people are also curious. How did you meet Jumong?" Sophie laughed softly, glancing at Jumong. "It's a bit of a story. My best friend Gina, one of the warmest people I met at university, we shared a hostel room. I used to work a part-time job washing dishes in a hotel. One day Gina hurt her ankle and couldn't do her shift, so I filled in. That night I ended up serving Jumong." The host smiled. "Love at first sight?" Jumong chuckled. "More like interest at first silence. She didn't say much, but her eyes said a lot." The crowd laughed. The host turned to Sophie again. How has Gina influenced you? Sophie's voice softened. She reminded me that kindness is strength. She's the reason I stayed strong in tough times. Then the host looked at Jumong. You've been quiet. Let me ask, when is the wedding? Jumong smiled and took Sophie's hand gently. The wedding will be soon, and it will be in Namibia. A ripple of surprise and joy moved through the audience. Namibia? Why there? He looked at Sophie and then back at the host. Because that's where she comes from, and her mother is there. I want to honor that. I want to know where Sophie comes from. The host beamed. That's beautiful. And what else have you learned about Namibia? Jumong leaned forward. Ever since I met Sophie, I've been learning more about her country. I've started researching Namibia and the continent. I want to help more students who want to come to Korea. We want to start a foundation for scholarships. The crowd clapped. Jumong added with a smile. But most questions should go to her. She's the one with the magic. The host laughed lightly. She certainly is. Sophie sat quietly for a moment, soaking in the atmosphere. The applause, the lights, Jumong's hand in hers. It felt like a dream. She opened her mouth to say something, perhaps a closing word of inspiration, but suddenly her stomach turned. She paused. The smile faded slightly from her face. Her hand moved to her mouth. The cameras didn't cut. The audience held its breath. Sophie blinked and gently touched her stomach. Her eyes widened slightly and she leaned forward in her seat. Sophie, are you okay? The host asked. Jumong's face tightened with concern. Do you need water? Sophie shook her head, trying to speak. But then the sensation returned, stronger. She pressed her hand again over her mouth and closed her eyes for a moment. Then, unable to hold back, she stood and quickly walked off the stage. The host stood halfway, uncertain. We'll just take a moment. But the cameras had already caught it. Jumong stood too, and after a second followed her. Whispers filled the audience. Someone near the front said softly, "She might be pregnant." The cameras cut to the host, who looked flustered, then smiled gently. We may have just witnessed a very special moment. The viewers at home, millions of them, were already posting. Sophie pregnant? That explains the glow. Did anyone else see her hand on her stomach before she left? Meanwhile, backstage, Jumong found Sophie sitting on a low couch, fanning herself gently with her palm. Are you okay? He asked, crouching beside her. She nodded. I didn't expect that. I wasn't even feeling strange this morning. He smiled, brushing her hair away from her face. Well, that was one way to end a talk show. She laughed lightly. Back on stage, the host wrapped up quickly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes life has bigger plans than we do. Whatever just happened, it was real and beautiful. We wish Sophie and Jumong all the happiness in the world. The show ended with applause, speculation, and hearts full of joy. And though no one said the word directly, everyone already knew. Something new was beginning. The car ride was silent for a while. After the show, the producers had tried to escort them quietly out through the side doors, but the cameras had already caught it all, Sophie holding her mouth, her other hand on her stomach, blinking fast, whispering something to Jumong before being helped off the stage. It was already online. We don't need to go to the hospital, I'm okay, Sophie had said softly, her voice still calm but tired. I just want them to check, please, Jumong replied. So they drove straight to a private hospital near the villa, where a nurse greeted them at the back entrance. They ran simple tests and gave Sophie something to settle her stomach. Everything looked fine. Just fatigue. Maybe something she ate. Maybe just nerves, the doctor said kindly. That night, Jumong insisted she rest. When she fell asleep, the house was so still he could hear her breathing from across the room. Gina's phone call came first. Sophie, she said, half laughing, half panicking. Are you okay? Everyone saw the show. Sophie sat up in bed, smiling groggily, the early sun pouring through the curtains. Gina, it was just a wave of nausea. I'm okay, really. You sure? That was dramatic. And Jumong looked like he was about to carry you out of the building. Sophie chuckled. He almost did. Gina lowered her voice. But are you know? I don't know. I haven't done a test, Sophie said honestly, her eyes drifting toward the door where Jumong had just stepped in, carrying a tray with tea and toast. Dong-hyun called next. He didn't ask too many questions. He just laughed warmly and said, "That boy looked like he was ready to fight the world for you on that stage. Take care of yourself. And if it's true, then may God bless both of you." Chairman Lee was more direct. He called Jumong's personal line while Sophie was still sipping her tea. "I saw the footage," he said. "She handled herself with grace, but your face gave everything away." "It was just nausea," Jumong replied. "We went to the hospital, nothing serious." Chairman Lee was quiet for a moment. "Is she resting?" "Yes, I sent everyone away. I just want her to be peaceful." "Good. Keep it that way. Let the media talk. But you just take care of her." Jumong nodded. "I will." Sophie stood silently in the bathroom, the soft morning light casting golden lines across the marble tiles. The house was quiet, only the soft hum of birds chirping outside the window. In her hand, she held the pregnancy test, 2 pink lines, clear and bright. The result stared back at her like a miracle, like a whisper from heaven. She didn't move. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. She felt the kind of stillness that came just before a storm. But this was a beautiful storm, one of joy, of life, of becoming something new. She slowly walked out of the bathroom, barefoot on the cool floor. Her silk robe swayed lightly around her ankles. Jumong stood by the window, his back to her. He was sipping tea, the cup halfway to his lips. She called gently, "Jumong." He turned around immediately, his eyes landing on hers. He saw something in her face, something that made him set the cup down carefully on the windowsill. "Yes?" She lifted her hand. The test was still in it. "It's positive," she whispered. For a moment, the world froze. His breath caught. His body stiffened slightly, then loosened all at once. He blinked, then laughed, a short, surprised sound like a child discovering snow for the first time. Then he crossed the room in just 3 strides and lifted her up into his arms. He didn't say anything at first. He just held her, tightly, completely. As if he was afraid if he let go, the moment would vanish like a dream. Sophie wrapped her arms around his neck, her cheek pressed against his shoulder. "Jumong," she whispered again, her voice soft and shaky. He slowly put her down. But the moment her feet touched the floor, he dropped to his knees. It shocked her. "Jumong!" But he looked up at her, tears forming in his eyes. "Let me kneel," he said softly. "Let me kneel before you. Because today you gave me a gift I can never repay." Her lip trembled. "No, it's both of us." Still on his knees, he reached for her hand and pressed a kiss to it, holding it against his forehead. After kneeling and praying together, Sophie remained in Jumong's arms for a long moment, her head resting against his chest. The peaceful silence between them was filled only by their steady breathing and the rhythm of her heart syncing with his. Then Jumong gently whispered, "You know who we should tell first." She looked up at him with a soft smile. "My mother." He nodded. "Yes, she deserves to know. She'll be so happy." Sophie reached for her phone and sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands trembled a little, not from fear, but from the emotion still surging in her chest. Jumong sat beside her, holding her hand as she dialed. It rang twice. Her mother's familiar voice answered. "Hello, my baby." "Hi, Mama," Sophie said, trying not to cry again. "Is everything okay?" her mother asked, immediately sensing something in her daughter's voice. "Mama." Sophie's voice wavered as she looked at Jumong. He nodded, encouraging her gently. "We're going to have a baby," she said quietly. "I'm pregnant." There was silence on the other end. Then came a sharp gasp, followed by a burst of emotion. "Oh, Sophie! Oh my God, my child! Oh, my baby girl!" Sophie could hear her mother's breath quicken, tears clearly flowing now. "Thank you, Lord," she whispered. "Thank you. Oh, Sophie, you don't know what this means to me." "Mama, I wanted you to be the first to know," Sophie said, her voice cracking as tears slipped down her cheeks. Jumong leaned closer and softly added, "Good morning, Mama." Her mother laughed through her tears. "Jumong, you've made me the happiest woman in Namibia this morning. Oh, bless you. Thank you. I'm so proud of you both." They talked for a little longer, and her mother's words were full of warmth and prayer. She reminded Sophie to rest, to take care of herself, and promised to start preparing things back home, even though the wedding wasn't for some time. After the call ended, Sophie placed the phone on her lap and looked at Jumong with misty eyes. He kissed her gently on the cheek, then whispered, "She's proud of you. So am I." And in that quiet room, filled with sunlight, soft laughter, and overwhelming love, their new journey truly began.